Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nowadays we are talking about our lectures in primary data collection, various ways of primary data collection, and how to analyze primary data. We have also discussed in our previous lectures that there are various ways of collecting primary data. It can be through observations, it can be through interviews, or it can be through surveys and questionnaires. And we have seen advantages and disadvantages of every method that we have used. Observational studies has some flaws and advantages. Questionnaires have some pros and cons, and other studies similarly give us a leverage to collect this or that kind of data with particular similarities and differences, so that we can analyze it and we get much information for our analysis to answer the question we want to answer in our research. Just to recap, in previous lecture we have discussed about primary data collection using questionnaire, and we have seen that questionnaire are often used to describe the descriptive and explanatory research. If your aim of research is explanatory or descriptive, you go and use questionnaire. There are 5 main types of questionnaires, and we have discussed that they may be internet or intranet mediated, postal, delivery and collection, telephone, and interview schedule. So interview schedule can also be called a structured interview. These are the 5 main types of questionnaire where we can use one or the other methodology of collecting data, and we get our data collected. Precise that data that meet the research objectives can be produced by using a data requirement table. And we have also seen that we have to have a data requirement table in which we say what is our investigative question, what is the need of variable for that particular question, how we measure that variable, and if we know this data requirement table and the requirement of the data table is fulfilled, then we are in a position to tell that our data needs are met nicely. Also, we have to see about the validity and reliability of data, response rate and design, and a structure and rigorous pilot testing. Pilot testing is very important. We have discussed in our previous lecture that you developed a questionnaire. After developing questionnaire, what you do is you choose some site, small sample size, where you go and ask the question by the respondents or the subjects, and you get their responses. This pilot testing is important for 3 reasons. Number 1, that you are in a position to understand what is your questions are about and how respondents are responding to these questions. Number 2, whether the questions are understandable to you as a researcher and also to subjects or respondents as they have to answer the question. And number 3, whether your questions answered by respondents are able to meet your objectives and research questions need or not. If these 3 things are fulfilled, your pilot is done, and then you go for your main study and data collection using that particular question. And of course, this piloting help in various other ways. For example, they are in a position to make our questionnaire more robust, pinpoint some of the mistakes or the missing points that are there in the research paper, in the questionnaire, and they help us to improve our way of asking question, also framing individual questions and improving the language of the questionnaire. So this is how pilot can have been an important impact on questionnaire development and finalizing the questionnaire. For also, wording and order of questions is an important aspect of questionnaire, and it also depends on the type of questions or questionnaire we are considering. So wording and order of questions and questions types are important consideration. We have discussed that we have to start smoothly, simply with nice questions. Complex questions should be in the middle of the questionnaire, and then we must have an ending to a questionnaire. Closed questions should be pre-coded to facilitate data input and analysis. So if the questions are closed, we have to understand that we have to pre-code them so that we can input our data in the software we are using for analysis, that we will discuss in today's lecture, and also it will help us in analyzing the data. So important design features of the questionnaire are clear layout, a logical order and flow of questions, and easily completed responses. So we have to have a logical order and flow of each individual question that is relevant to the previous one, and they are logically linked together with each other. And completed response, we have to understand that whether with this question the response we get will be a complete response, or is there something missing from it. Like in last lecture we have discussed an example of that I went to meet my father and mother, but we have also discussed that these are two separate questions, that one is that I went to meet my father, other is that I went to meet my mother. So we have to disentangle these differences into separate questions so that we can understand how things are working when we do research. Questionnaire should be carefully introduced and pilot tested prior to administration. It must be introduced nicely. So we have also discussed in our lecture previously that you must have a cover letter for your questionnaire if it is a self-administered questionnaire. If you're sending it to somebody, if you are asking people to fulfill when you are not present there, and if it is a questionnaire which needs explanation because the subject who is filling the questionnaire is solely or self-administering the questionnaire, then you need a cover letter which actually explains the aim of your questionnaire, the aim of your study, and why you are interested to get information from that particular respondent. Administration needs to be appropriate to the type of questionnaire. You have to administer accordingly, whether you are doing a telephonic interview, an internet or intranet mediated, or it is a face-to-face or self-administered interview. You have to administer it nicely so that you can get maximum out of the questionnaire you have had. Once you used one or the other way to collect data and the data is collected, the next thing that one can easily imagine is to analyze the data. Today we are talking about analyzing quantitative data. This quantitative data analysis is very important when it comes to research, especially those who are doing financial research, management or human resources research, and marketing research. They normally or predominantly use quantitative data, and within quantitative data they need to analyze it so that they can produce some results, which goes into results and discussion section of their proposal or dissertation, and that's how they help to find out some solutions or interpretations for the hypotheses and problems they are trying to address, and this is how their dissertation get completed. So we have to understand how to analyze the data we have collected, especially the quantitative data, and what kind of various tools and techniques are there, as well as software that can help us increase our understanding of the data as well as analysis of the quantitative data that we have. We will be starting with preparing, inputting and checking data. If you intend to undertake quantitative analysis, you have to consider following. So first thing is type of data. Second is format in which your data will be put into the analysis of software. For example, SPSS, eViews, Stata, and Vivo. Impact of data coding on subsequent analysis, and method you intend to use to check data for errors. There can be errors in data. So 4 things are very important: type, format, coding, and method. So what is the type of your data? In which format you want to put your data into the software? What is the data coding that you are using for subsequent analysis? And what method you use to intend to check data for errors? So we start with with type of data, or scale of measurement we also called it. How do you measure your data? And then we will talk about the format in which your data will be input. Then data coding, which is relatively simple. We are not going into much detail of this, but what you can do is you basically go and read the chapter number 12 of Saunders et al. Book, where you can find some topics dealing with this coding of the data. And it depends on researcher to researcher, and it varies that how you code your data, but there are some basics that you have to cover while coding your data. This is very important, this coding aspect, when your data is qualitative, because qualitative data is difficult to code, and if you are coding them nicely, then definitely you are avoiding number of things. Number one, for subsequent analysis you could have done it nicely. You try to maintain or remove errors from that, and the coding is very important when it comes to qualitative data. Of course it is also important in quantitative data, but the margin of coding is relatively less compared to what it is in qualitative data. And then of course what method you use or intend to use when you want to check the data errors. What is quantitative data? It can be divided into two distinct groups: categorical, numerical. Categorical data refers to where values can't be measured numerically but can either be classified into sets, categories, according to characteristics that identify or describe the variable, or placed in rank order. And I think all these three things we have discussed in our previous lecture when we talked about categorical question, list question, rank question, and other things that we have discussed in our previous lecture. So one thing we have to understand is that categorical data is the data whose values can't be measured numerically. Which category this car belong to? Good, better, best. Which category your shoes or your hand gloves belongs to? This one or that one, imported or local. So these are the things that you know you are unable to measure numerically, but you can categorize them. And these categories actually need coding. What kind of code you will use for local? What is the coding for national and international? Whether it is good, better, or best, so what code you will give. And we have discussed that if it is good, better, or best, then we might say 1 is good, 2 is better, and 3 is best. So this is our coding for a categorical variable. We can also rank them, we can also list them. So categorical data refers to the data whose values can't be measured numerically, but can either be classified into sets, categories, according to the characteristics that identify or describe the variable, or placed in the rank order. And we have discussed these things in our previous lecture. They can be further divided into descriptive and ranked. For example, a car manufacturer might categorize the types of car it produces as hatchback, saloon, or estate. These are known as descriptive data, or we call it nominal data, as it is impossible to define the category numerically or to rank it. So for example, hatchback, saloon, or estate. So you are not in a position to define category numerically. So for example, you cannot say that hatchback is equal to, let's say, value of 5 or 50 or any numerical number. Any numerical number. So hatchback is hatchback, but you can give your preference for something. Like if I want to buy a car, I'll definitely see that a car manufacturer or a person who is selling car in auto showroom, he has hatchback, saloon and estate. So which one I'll prefer to buy? So according to my preference, I can give numbers to my preference according to that. And we have discussed in our previous lecture an example that what determine a person's preference to buy a car and what are the factors that affect his or her preference to buy a car. And we discussed about boot size, depreciation, price of the car, CO2 emission and these kind of characteristics. And then we coded them that if you have a character that you like the most, you give it 1 as code. If you like it relatively less, you give it 2 and so on. And if you don't like any of the character that you think is not important at all, you actually leave it blank. So this is how you categorize them according to your own preference. They cannot be given numerical values, but you can code them accordingly based on your coding preferences. Or it is also difficult to rank them. We also discussed that we have had rank questions where we can rank them, but hatchback, saloon and estate, how do you rank them? You don't know, because there is no preferential treatment of these characteristics. They are categories. One is under the category of hatchback, the other is saloon, the third is estate. So neither you can rank them nor you in a position to do it numerically. Rather, these data simply count the number of occurrences in each category of a variable. So they count only frequency or occurrences in each of the category. So how many of the hatchbacks you have had, saloons or estate? For virtually all analysis, the categories should be unambiguous and discrete. So one thing that you have to understand while you are making questionnaire and entering data into your software, that your categories must be unambiguous and discrete. Or in other words, having one particular feature such as a car being a hatchback, exclude all other features for that variable. So you have to describe how many cars a person have, and out of that how many are hatchback or estate or saloon. This prevents questions arising as to which category an individual case belong to. I mean, many of your respondents can have car, but if you categorize them according to hatchback, saloon or estate, then you will be in a position to easily identify that how many of your respondents have hatchback, how many have estate or and how many have saloon. So this is how categories prevent us from unambiguity. And if you categorize the data, then your data will become less ambiguous. Although these data are purely descriptive, you can count them to establish which category has the most and whether cases are spread evenly between categories. So what you basically do, you make a simple table in which you have a variable that is car possession, that is your variable, and now you have 3 categories. For saloon we write S, for hatchback we write HB, and for estate we write EST. So now you count that in your data sets you have total number of respondents around, let's say, 100, and out of 100, 70 have saloon, 21 have hatchback, and 9 have estate. So this is how you basically in a position to count the numbers within a category. So within a category of various features of car, you have 100 people who have car. and out of these 100 cars, certain numbers or certain percentage belongs to one kind of car, another percentage belongs to another kind of car, and so on. So that's you have to keep in mind, and based on that you are in a good position actually to count the percentage also. So if you want to do an analysis, a simple descriptive analysis of showing that how many of your respondents have which percentage of cars, then what you can do, you basically divide simply 70 by 100. Out of total car, how much percentage belongs to the saloon? So what you do, you divide total number of saloon cars by total number of cars, multiply by 100. So 100 cancels 100, so it becomes 70%. So 70% cars are saloon, 21% cars belong to hatchback, and 9% car belongs to estate. So this is how you can make a simple descriptive percentage table from your category variable. So now if we describe the first point again, that although these data are purely descriptive, you can count them to establish which category has the most and whether cases are separated evenly between categories, and now we can see that saloon has the most cars according to our example, and estate has the lowest number of cars in your sample. So now you are in a position to describe them, that how much every category counts and are these spread equally or not. And of course the number go in favor of saloon, that people in that particular area might like saloon cars more because this or that reason. Some statisticians and statistics also separate descriptive data where there are only two categories. These are known as dichotomous data, as the variable is divided into two categories, such as the variable gender being divided into male and female. So you have a category in which you are collecting data on gender, that is male and female, and we called this variable as dichotomous. Di means two, so either your gender can be male or your gender can be female. So you give a coding of 1 if it is male, a coding of 2 when it is female. So whenever in your gender it comes 2, you always understand that it is female, and whenever it comes 1, you always understand that it is male. So this is the importance of coding, and if you do it rightly, you will definitely be in a position to understand which code stands for what and how you count them. And then again, of course, you can count them, how many ones you have in your data, how many twos you have in your data, and then you can count how many based on gender. So you can make a gender table which you say that your variable is gender, and then you have male and female, and within male you have had, let's say, 59, while in female you have 41. And of course, if you want to count percentage, so out of 100 it is 41%, and out of 100 it is 59%. So now you can describe that in your data about 59% or close to 60% of your sample belongs to male, while 41% belongs to female. So we have dichotomous variable, that is gender, male, female, and we have ranked data, or a more precise form of categorical data. So you can rank a data like good, agreed, disagreed, relatively agreed, neutral, things like that. So you rank them in that fashion, and we called it ordinal data also. Numerical data which are sometimes termed as quantifiable are those whose values are measured or counted numerically as quantities. So we can count them in numbers. For example, what is your income per month? So the person says 20 Pakistani rupees. So per month income of that person is measured in numbers, which is 20. This means that numerical data are more precise than categorical, as you can assign each data value a position on a numerical scale. It also means that you can analyze these data using a far wider range of statistics. So it will be difficult for you as a researcher to analyze the data which is categorical, versus it is relatively more easy to analyze data which has numerical value. So what we can do now, we can actually see how we can plot numerical data. So we have income on our y-axis, and on our x-axis we have income category. So we divide those who have income from 10 to 20, and then we have 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and finally 41 to 50. And now we can see that income 10, 15, 25, 35, 45, 50. And now we can actually see that whether the graph is this way, whether the graph is this way, or whether the graph is this way. So within each category, how the income is moving, is it increasing, decreasing, something like that. So we can create these kind of various graphs simply by using the graphical methods in our statistical analysis. So numerical data which are sometimes termed as quantifiable are those whose values are measured, like income we can measure, or counted numerically, like 20 rupees, 10 rupees, 50 rupees, 55 rupees, as quantities. And this means that numerical data are more precise, they are easy to understand. So you have income of 20 rupees, understood. And then categorical data, so categories, hatchback, saloon, estate, as you can assign each data value a position on a numerical scale. Like in our example, we have given each data a numerical scale value. It also means that you can analyze these data using a far wider range of statistics. So you can either categorize them and then see in which category how many persons fall. You can also make a graph of income with respect to gender. Now what is the income level of female versus what is the income level of male. And these kind of comparisons, contradictions, similarities, dissimilarities can be distinct through using statistics for numerically valued data. There are two possible ways of subdividing numerical data. Number one is into interval or ratio data, and alternatively into continuous or discrete data. If you have interval data, you can state the difference or interval between any two data values for a particular variable, but you cannot state the relative difference. This means that the values on an interval scale can meaningfully be added and subtracted, but not multiplied and divided. And the example is the Celsius temperature, the Celsius temperature or the Fahrenheit temperature. Although the difference between say 20 degrees centigrade and 30 degrees centigrade is 10, that 20 degrees centigrade is 10 less than 30 degrees centigrade, or 30 degrees centigrade is 10 more than 20 degrees centigrade, but it does not mean that 30 degree is 1.5 times as warm. We cannot compare that way. So this is the interval data, and in interval data we have seen that interval data is the data in which you state the difference, like we have stated that there is a difference of 10 between 20 degree and 30 degree between any two data variable for a particular variable, but you cannot state the relative difference. You can see the difference is of 10 degree, but you cannot say that 20 is relatively or 30 is 1.5 times as warm as 20 degree. This is relatively difficult to explain in interval data. And in contrast, for ratio data you can also calculate the relative difference. In interval data you cannot calculate the difference, but in relative difference or ratio between any of the two data values for a variable. Consequently, for example, if a multinational company makes a profit of, let's say, 300,000 in 1 year and 600,000 of the following year, we can say that profit have doubled. So last year they had 300, this year they grown to 600. So we can say with ease that their profit has been doubled. So this is the difference between ratio and interval variable that we have to keep in our mind. Continuous data are those whose values can be theoretically take any value, sometimes within a restricted range, provided that you can measure them accurately enough. So continuous data can be any value that you can give, 1, 2, 5, 10, 3, 4, 190, 80, 75, whatever you can. Data such as furnace temperature, delivery distance, and length of service are there for continuous data. For example, if you're sitting in an area where you want to have a pizza delivered at your home, or any other food that is giving you a home delivery services, the distance between that delivery service and your house is a continuous data. It can be 3 kilometers, it can be 3.5 kilometers, it can be 3.2 kilometers, 2.5 kilometers, 5 kilometers, whatever distance it is a continuous data. Discrete data can, by contrast, be measured precisely. Each case takes one of a finite number of values from a scale that measures changes in discrete unit. So discrete can measure precisely, and it can take us a finite number of values. So understanding differences between type of data is extremely important, because then you will be in a position to understand what kind of analysis you need for your data. What is the important analysis you can do for that particular data? When analyzing your data quantitatively, for two reasons. You have to understand the differences between your data, that is quantitative data, and that you have to know because of these two particular reasons. Number one, it is extremely easy with analysis software to generate statistics from your data that are inappropriate for the data type and are consequently of little value. So this gives you an edge that you will be in a position to decide which data can be used for what particular category and how we can analyze that particular data in our statistical analysis. Secondly, the more precise the scale of measurement, the greater the range of analytical techniques available to you. If your coding of categorical variable is nice, if your measurement of, let's say, for example, income, which is numerical value, is accurate, then you will be in a better position to graph them, to analyze them, to statistically test one or the other hypothesis. For example, let me explain you this simple point, which is our second point. If you take income of one person in rupees, others in US dollar, and for third person you seek consumption per month rather than income. So how you can compare rupees versus dollar versus consumption? maybe it is relatively easy to compare rupees and dollar, because you can either convert rupees into dollar by exchange rate, which is current exchange rate, or you can choose US dollar into rupees. But how you link consumption with your income? Income is always greater than consumption, or consumption is relatively less than income. So how do you compare them? So your level of measurement as well as your unit of measurement makes a big difference when it comes to data analysis, especially statistical data analysis for your data. So you definitely need to measure your quantitative data into measurable units which are comparable also. That will give you an ease for your statistical analysis, also give you an ease in comparing and contrasting the data. So you can be in a good position to see with which income level how many female belongs to or how many males belong to. According to age category, if you have an age variable, then you can also compare and contrast. You can also make various bands of income level like we did in our previous graph, and you see which band has more income level group in your responses. Are they relatively poor, are they relatively rich, or they middle class? So this is how you can actually do a lot with your data while you are having a measurement unit which is comparable. So the more precise the scale of measurement, the greater the range of analytical techniques available to you, and that's very, very easy, provided while you are developing questionnaire you take care of these things relatively nicely. If you are in a position in developing your question to take care of these simple issues, you will be in a better position to get a rich data sets for very outstanding and relatively better statistical analysis for your data. Data that have been collected and coded using a precise numerical scale of measurement can also be regrouped to a less precise level where they can also be analyzed. If you have categorized them, you have measured them, you can also regroup them. So for example, in our income, what we can do, we can make here a two-way data sets. So one is our gender variable, which is male and female, and here comes the income categories. So first category, second, third and fourth. And now you can actually see with all these categories how many of your males belong to and how many of your females belong to. But to make this table more descriptive, more understandable, what you can do, you can tell that first income category means that from less than 20 Pakistani rupees. Second category means 20 to 30 Pakistani rupees. Third is equal to 31 to 40 rupees, and fourth is equal to 41 to 50 rupees. So if you know these of your categories and you also know your male and female members, then you will be in a better position to say that 35% of male belong to first category, 25% male belongs to second category, 25 belongs to third category and 15 belongs to fourth category. So let's check the female, that 40 belongs to this, 25 belongs to this, 20 belongs to this, and 15 belongs to this. So if we count them, we are close to we are almost 100 in each category. So for example, 25 25 50 and 30 80 85 90 and 100, 15 and 25 40 40 and 40 80, and then 20 100. So we are complete 100 males, 100 females. And now if we want to compare, then we are in a good position to compare how many of male and female belong to first category, and we can compare and contrast that within one category, that is the lowest income level, more female are there relative to male. And by using a percentage way calculation of percentage, we can also say that 35% of male are falling under category 1, which is less than 20%, while 40% of female are falling in this category. In second category, that is almost close to between 20 and 30 rupees, which is closely relevant or resemblance, 25 males versus 25 females. In third category, which is relatively rich, or we called it middle class, we have more male relative to female. And fourth category, which is rich or elite class of the society, we have almost equal number of male and female. This is an hypothetical data, we don't have to look into this thing, but what I want to tell you is through this table that we are in a good position to actually analyze our data very nicely into very different graphs and techniques, provided we have measured it at a right level of measurement. If we are not in a position to measure the data, especially the numerical and categorical data that we have had collected through questionnaire, we will not be in a position to do a relatively strong or a good statistical analysis. That's why we have this very important points, that the data that had been collected and coded. So coding is very important too. Not only that you have collect data nicely, but you have coded them accordingly. Using a precise numerical scale of measurement can also be regrouped. So we have regrouped the income into various income categories that we have developed by ourselves, and we have coded them accordingly. So one code or the first category is less than 20%, less than 20 rupees. Second, between 20 and 30. Third, 31 to 40. Fourth, 41 to 50. So according to this income, we have divided based on gender, which male group or how many numbers of male belong to this particular category of income, how many females. So this table can be analyzed with gender lens using columns. That is, within first category we have, let me change the color so that we can understand it nicely. So one is column, that is this one, first income category, that is equal to less than 20%. Gender wise, how many male and female are there in that particular category. But you can also compare them row wise. So within male, how many males are falling in each category and how they are distributed along the whole sample size for males. So 35% of male are falling in first category, that is we called as poor, while 15% are falling in a category which we called elite or rich group, while 25% fall just above poverty line and 25% fall in the middle income group. So this is how you compare the male group, and in this you can also compare, let me change the color again so that we will be in a position to know how we compare female, for example. So here comes the female thing. So within one income category, we will be in a better position to see that, for example, in poverty group more females fall, which is close to poverty but out of poverty line. We just said that this is relatively better. Less females fall. Middle income group less than, which is close to poverty, and rich or elite are also less than the middle income. So this is how we can compare female group within the various income categories, and we can also compare the male group within all the income categories, and also male and female within various income categories. So this simple one table is quite rich and informative when we compare gender and income categories, and it gives us relatively rich information about various gender and income categories. So this is very important for us as a researcher to understand that whenever we are developing a questionnaire, we have to keep three things in our mind, and these are very important. Number one, when you ask question, you must know what variable you are getting from that question and whether that variable is measured accurately or not. So accuracy is one thing, but similarities of income of variable or similar unit of measurement of variable is another important thing, so that you will be in a better position after collecting data to analyze that data statistically nicely. So if we don't have one category of income, we will not be in a position to collect data in a nice measurement units, and also will not be in a position to analyze the data in that particular fashion. Second thing that is very important is coding of the data. When you are developing questionnaire, you have to develop codes of each and every question where the codes are needed. For example, for gender, male, female, we need coding for male and female because we cannot analyze male and female, but what we can analyze is the numbers that we give to male and female. For example, 1 stands for male, 2 stands for female, and then for whole data set that we have collected, what we do, we give numbers. When it comes to male, we give 1 number. When it comes to female, we give 2 number. And then we will be in a position to disintegrate how many males we have in our sample versus how many females we have in our sample. For just making things easy, we are taking 100 males and 100 females, but data can be 330, data can be 250, data can be 500, 900 something. It depends on how you calculate your sample size, which will represent your population, and you can generalize your results. But just for understanding sake, we are giving these simple numbers so that we can easily calculate percentages and all that to make ourselves understand about it. So we have regrouped the income data into various categories, and that help us to analyze the data more precisely, accurately, and in detail. For example, a student's score in a test could be recorded as the actual mark. So you have got 80 marks out of 100, you got 80%, and that can be a discrete data. Another student got 75, another student got 92, another student got 85, and so on. Or as the position in their class, that is rank. So you have got first position, the person who was at 92 got first position, the person who got 85 got third position, and the student who got 82 fourth position, 85 position, and so on. This is we call ranked data. So we have to have a nice measurement unit and coding of the data so that we can easily regroup them. For example, for income we have measurement of rupees, Pakistani rupees, and we measured income according to it. So you can have 20, 25, 26, 29, 30, 41, 52, something like that, and we have all the income. And based on that income data, we have regrouped them by making sub-income groups. So from less than 20%, how many of your observations falls within less than 20% or less than 20 rupees of income? How many of your group or interviewers or subjects fall in between 20 to 30 rupees? How many of them fall in 31 to 40 rupees, and so on? And then you will be in a position to, let's say, disintegrate that data based on, let's say, gender. How many gender categories you have? Male and female. Similarly, you can make that table. So for example, this is our empty slide where we want to make a table for your better understanding. Now our variable is whether you have status of your respondent, that is married versus unmarried, and you make again the 4 categories, that is first income group, second income group, third income group, and fourth income group. And now you divide them, let's say 38, 22, 18. So how many of these? 18, 38, 40, 60, 70, 78, and then we can have, let's say, 22. They are equal to 100. Here we have 45, we have 15, have 25, and we have 15. So we have had 100 in each category, and we have divided them according to married and unmarried. And now we can also make this table that how many married fall in each category of income and how many unmarried fall in each category on income. To make this table more outstanding, more statistically understandable, and more catchy, we can also distinguish married male and female and unmarried male and female. And for that, what we will do, we basically put categories in our columns and then we do it this way. For example, if we try to erase this whole table and make a new table which give us an understanding of, let's say, I'm just giving you an example of male versus female, and now you have these 4 categories which is for married, and these 4 categories which is for unmarried. And now you will be in a good position to develop that table. Gender, and that is marital status, and here comes the income category. And this table you can now understand how many married male fall in these categories, how many unmarried male fall in these income categories, how many married female falls in these income categories, and how many unmarried females fall in these income categories. And now you can fill in these spaces by the data that you have had with you, and you can analyze it in various ways. One is to compare married males and females in various income group. Other is to compare unmarried male and females to in various income group. Then you can compare married male and unmarried male. You can compare married female and unmarried female, and there are various ways to compare one simple variable in various ways. So this is grouping, regrouping and reorganizing in a way that you can do a lot of with your table. Before we go into further detail of our quantitative analysis, I'll just give you a glimpses of this data, and we will discuss in this detail in our lecture later. So we have quantitative data that starts from first thing we called obtained a data for variable, let's say income, and it leads us to this way here. Can the data be measured numerically as quantities? If it says yes, then you get numerical data. And then you can move, can the relative difference between two data values be calculated? If yes, then it is a ratio data. And then it moves and it asks another question, can the data theoretically take any value within a range? If it says yes, it is a continuous data. If it says no, then it is a discrete data. So if you ask this question, that can the relative difference between two data values be calculated? If you say yes, it is relative. If you say no, then it is an interval data. Same is the case if you ask, can the data be measured numerically as quantities? If you say yes, it is numerical data, but when you say no, then it becomes categorical data. And within categorical data, when you ask, can the data be classified into more than two sets? If you say no, then you called it dichotomous or descriptive data. And if you say yes, then you will definitely ask a question, can these sets be placed in rank order? If you say yes, it is a ranked or ordinal data. But if you say no, then it becomes nominal or descriptive data. So this is how you distinguish your data sets into various categories, and you determine whether it make any sense or not. And this is the very important table that you have to keep in your mind when you are developing your questionnaire, when you are asking individual questions, so that you will be in a position or in a better position to answer first to yourself that what kind of question you are asking and which categorical data or which kind of data you are getting. Is it ordinal? Is it ratio? Is it discrete? Is it continuous? Is it nominal, ratio? What kind of, or numerical, categorical, ranked list, what kind of data you'll get? So once you are in a position to understand what kind of data you are getting in your questionnaire, then you will be in a better position to tell what kind of analysis you will be needing when you are done with your data collection through using this or that kind of particular questionnaire. And then you will be in a better position actually to analyze your data descriptively, that will help you to write your analysis and report or the dissertation that you want to write. Before I go further, we will start our next lecture from this table and we move further and talk about how various data can be entered, measured and interpreted, what help various kind of data sets gives us when we do statistical analysis, and how these things are important when we do analysis of quantitative data. Today we have discussed about what is quantitative data, how can we measure it, and what kind of analysis we can do with the quantitative data. We have also seen that we can have categorical data in quantitative data. We can have numerical data like income. Within categorical, we have discussed that it can be, for example, a car like hatchback, salon or estate. We can have numerical data if it is numerical like income, for example, consumption, for example. If it is the case, then we can also have interval data. We have also discussed the example of Celsius scale, that is 20 versus 30. We can see the difference is 10, but we cannot say with surety that 20 is less warmer than 38 or 10 times less or something like that. We have ratio data where we can calculate ratio easily, and we have given an example of that. We also discussed about the discrete and continuous data. We have discussed the distance of something that is delivered. For example, if you want to have pizza or biryani or something, and if you have somebody to whom you call and ask that you have to deliver pizza or biryani or chicken kadai to your home, so the distance between your home and delivery service is a continuous data. And then we have also discussed about discrete data and descriptive and dichotomous data. Dichotomous data, we have discussed that it can have either or situation, so male or female, so we can give one or other value to our data. So if it is male, we can give it 1, if it is female, we can give it 2. So these codings are given and we called it dichotomous variable or dichotomous descriptive data. We have also seen that coding is very important. If we code them nicely, we will be in a better position to determine the frequency of each occurrence, and we will be in a position to distinguish between one or the other variable. So coding is very important, and beside this we also understand that measurements of values or measurement of your variable or measurement of your data makes a big difference. If you measure them accurately and nicely, you will be in a very better position to determine whether you can do sophisticated statistical analysis or not. Similarity in units which are easily understandable can give us an idea of how to analyze data, how better to analyze statistically, and how to present results while analyzing quantitative data. Before we go into further detail, I'll stop here, and hopefully inshallah we'll start our next lecture from this table, and then we move further and talk about the quantitative data, its techniques of analysis, how do we do analysis, and what kind of analysis we can do when we have various different kinds of data sets like discrete, numerical, dichotomous, ratio, interval or categorical. So I hope you have learned something from this lecture, and I'll see you in next lecture inshallah. Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz.